Hey, Clark, great to talk to you. We were, amongst the other things that we were talking about, there was an issue in the NHL with Tom Wilson and a hit on a player from St. Louis, in which we're wondering about the game suspension. My only thing about it was, he's got a little bit of a rap sheet on him, so of course he'll be treated, in that magical way that the NHL does when it comes to discipline. But it also reminded me of, where we're going in terms of protection of our athletes in violent sports where, you're paying essentially, I would say in any football league, to go and see the quarterback. Therefore, there are rules that that have been put in place to protect these star players. But there's a line that I think we're getting close to, which is if we keep going down this road, and I certainly understand, number one, for safety, number two, for lawsuits. What is the feeling right now in the NFL with the protection rules with the quarterback? Because we've seen a lot of flags, and if you're Clay Matthews, Dave and I were talking about that too, I think he's getting one every game, and some of those times it's costing a game.
Yeah, no, I think that is the case. But if you notice this past weekend, there weren't as many roughing the passer calls. In fact, there were very few. It was anywhere from 5 to 2, depending on how you call it, roughing the passer or a personal foul, whatever. But in any case, it was dramatically less than it has been, and that's a big deal. And the reason it's a big deal is because the NFL realized exactly what you're saying. There's a line here that we really can't cross. I mean, otherwise, let's just have a rule that says you can't touch the quarterback, because that's where we're going.
Yeah.
And some of those hits, in fact, there was one, and you guys may have seen it in the Oakland game where I've forgotten the Oakland player, but he grabbed Baker Mayfield. He had hit him, but grabbed him, sort of held on to him, and a flag was thrown. And the NFL defended it. I looked at it and went, you have got to be kidding me. I mean, now we're at the point where you say you just can't touch the guy. And if that's it, okay, that's fine. Make the rule that you cannot touch the quarterback. But I think that's the issue that was going on the first 2 or 3 weeks, whether you mentioned Clay Matthews. A couple of those Clay Matthews hits were ridiculous. I mean, we had Mike Pereira on the radio last week on the Talk of Fame Network, and he was talking about how they're changing the game. And I do think that's true. He said they've got to modify that rule, and they didn't modify it, but I think they told officials, listen, be a lot more judicious about it now, because it's having a huge impact on the game. That's all people are talking about. Remember when we were talking about in preseason, the lowering of the helmet? That was a huge deal. There were 50 calls in the first 2 weeks of preseason. There were, I think, 20 in the third week, something like that. There was one in the first week of the regular season because they modified the rule by using the word inadvertent. Well, they've told the officials here, listen, use your judgment here because it's out of control. And I think you saw what happened. They rolled it back last week, and the games were easier to watch.
Well, before we get to Dave, and I'm sure we're going to touch upon the same thing. Watching Patrick Mahomes. Now, look, I know it's only 4 games. So when you start whipping around names like Peyton Manning, or I don't know, they're talking about Johnny Unitas already. It's 4 games, and so I think we got to pump our brakes a little bit. And again, when you see these outstanding kids coming out of college. Their faces, my God, maybe it's just us. Every year we get a little bit older, the faces seem to get a little bit younger. It's like, I don't think is this guy in public school? How old is this guy? And,
well, it's funny you said that, because I went back to my college a couple of weeks ago. I said to my wife, these kids look like they're 10.
Well, no kidding.
Exactly.
So true.
But what amazes me, aside from the athletic ability, is his understanding of reading a defense. He seems to have some poise already and an understanding of how to read a defense quickly. But the only thing I would say is after 4 games, he's a very athletic guy, and sometimes the athletic guys, they need to learn some hard lessons, and that starts to affect health and longevity. But I think the trend right now is he is really worth the price of admission. He is really something to watch.
Yeah, I'm right in step with you on everything you just said, because you watch him and he's exciting, he's exhilarating, he's accomplished, he's everything you want from a quarterback. That said, I had somebody say, geez, we've never seen anything like this before. And I said, I have. I saw RG3 his first year.
Yes.
I saw Michael Vick his first year. You just start going down the list. Listen, Steve Young, John Elway. Dan Marino had a great first year. Kurt Warner. They're different quarterbacks. But I look at RG3 his first year, and honestly, when I was working at CBS, and this is the God's honest truth, I had somebody in the middle of the season there ask me, do you think this guy is going to be in the Hall of Fame? I went, what? Yeah. I said he's played 7 or 8 games. Oh no, but we've never seen anything like this before. But we just don't have long attention spans, long memories. And I understand that if you're like me, you got those senior moments, you don't have long memories. But if you're young and you ask that question, you go, hang around a little bit because you've always seen this at some point. Now, this guy, I agree with you. I mean, he's got an uncanny knowledge of reading the defenses. Now, he sat a year. He's not a rookie, so he sat and watched. It's certainly been helpful to him. He played one game, started one game last year. He was good, but he wasn't this good. And you look at it and say, whoa, where's this headed? I'm with you on this because what happened to RG3? Remember when he was scrambling, Haloti Ngata hit him and he hurt him and he had a knee injury. Then he comes back in the Seattle game, he gets hurt again. And that was basically it. Injuries have such an impact on these guys. That's why they like you to be in a pocket because it's protection. Now, you get outside of it, yeah, you can be active, and Russell Wilson is. Joe Montana was, but you can be active inside the pocket too. And I've said this to you guys before. The criticism of Tom Brady always is he's not a mobile quarterback. I would argue and say he's one of the most mobile quarterbacks because he's mobile inside the pocket. He can feel where that hit's coming, and he rarely takes brutal hits. Some quarterbacks aren't like that. Drew Bledsoe could never figure out where that pressure is coming from. A terrific quarterback, but he got hurt a lot. And that's an important key for these guys. And so you look at Mahomes, he doesn't look like the kind of guy like RG3 would pull it down quickly and run. He looks like he's looking for a second, third option, that sort of thing. That's going to help him. But at some point, yeah, he's going to take a hit. And the older you get, I remember when McNabb first came out. He was more of a runner than a passer, and as time went on, he became more of a passer and a really good one within the pocket. The reason? He wanted to protect himself, and that's going to be the same thing here. Yeah, he's exhilarating. He's fun to watch. He is worth the price of admission. He's everything you said. But you got to be careful because at some juncture you say you've just got to watch these guys because you're in a league where these 300-pounders are running your speed. They're not Tyreek Hill, but they're fast and they can run you down and they can hurt you.
We're on the line with Clark Judge from the Talk of Fame Network, joining us here on Raw Mike Richards. Clark, two teams I want to focus on, and I want you to tell me which one you believe more in, which one will maintain what they've started off the season. Talking about the 3-1 Chicago Bears or the 3-1 Cincinnati Bengals. Which ones are you looking at saying, I could see this being a playoff team come late December?
Well, I'm glad you didn't ask me about the 0-0 Montreal Canadiens versus
That's next
the
week.
0-0
We're
Toronto
saving
Maple Leafs.
We're saving that.
No. Well, I'll tell you which one I believe in. It's Chicago. I believe in Chicago because of the defense. Cincinnati, you look at Cincinnati, they're playing well. They stole one last week. That was a great win for them. On the road in Atlanta, that was a great win for them. They just lost Tyler Eifert, though. That's a big loss, guys. That's a really big loss to them. He's a security blanket for Dalton the way that Dennis Pitta was for Joe Flacco in Baltimore. And Joe Flacco has gotten other tight ends to replace him now, and we saw them on Monday night. I mean, they're doing a really good job there in Baltimore. But with Cincinnati, I just look at them and say, I don't trust them. I don't see that big playmaker on defense with Chicago. You see him everywhere, but especially with Khalil Mack and what they're doing there. And that division, they don't have the kind of speed bumps that they do, to me at least, in the AFC South, AFC North, because Cincinnati's got to go over Baltimore. They've got to go over Pittsburgh. Now, Pittsburgh looks like a damaged team right now.
Yep.
Nevertheless, it's the Steelers, and they're always there. Baltimore looks legit. So you look in the NFC North, and you got Green Bay. Yeah, I'd say Green Bay. If Aaron Rodgers were Aaron Rodgers, he's not the quarterback he was, guys. I mean, he's good. He's really good. But that knee injury is a factor. If you saw him last week, he doesn't move very well. The week before was more obvious. He has trouble stepping into some throws. It's tough to watch him play, and he carries that team on his back, and he'll carry him again. But with damaged Aaron Rodgers, I think Chicago is the team to beat in that division based on 4 games. Minnesota looks like it's vulnerable, and Detroit's Detroit. So I just think it's Chicago is the team right now because they've got it on both sides of the ball. I'm not a big Trubisky fan, despite what we saw last week. I think he's all over the place, get a little bit of good, the bad, and the ugly. But I think he's good enough for them with that defense. And defense does win the championships. That's why I put them above Cincinnati. Much better defense and probably one of the best defenses in the NFL right now.
Well, Clark, the other team too that's got off to kind of a crazy start in a bad way, but I think a lot of it has to do with health, I believe, is the Philadelphia Eagles at 2-2. I have to think at some point when they get it back on the rails, we do have to be looking at them as a significant player in the NFC, do we not?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's a defending champion. You got Wentz back. The teams are going to stumble early. I know we talked about New England a week ago. We're going to bury them with dirt at this point, and the answer was no. And the same thing with Philadelphia. You look at them now, and who's going to beat them in that division, guys? I've seen the Giants. They're terrible. Dallas doesn't look like they've got any firepower. Who's going to beat them? Washington? Washington's probably the team that's going to push them, but I don't trust Washington either. I mean, I think Philadelphia is going to the playoffs. They're winning that division. Now the question is, what do you have in the rest of that in that conference? And the rest of that conference has got the LA Rams. That's a huge speed bump. Rams are playing very well. Again, it's 4 games. There's so much in front of us, but yeah, I don't worry about Philadelphia. Wentz will get better. He's pretty good right now. He'll just get better and better as the season goes on, as he gets more comfortable. They're the defending Super Bowl champs, and I think they'll make a stand in the playoffs. I don't worry about them getting there.
So what did you make of the performance by the two Joshes? Now, of course, Josh Allen the week beforehand had the miracle game against, I don't know if you, maybe you don't call it a miracle game against Minnesota, but, Josh Rosen finally gets in. I mean, we're talking about some young quarterbacks, Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, and we just talked about Patrick Mahomes. I do like what I see in them. It just, I'm a little bit old school, and, we mentioned, and you did certainly, that Patrick Mahomes had the benefit of being on the sideline and watching how the game unfolds and what you need to look at. I think it's one of the reasons he is who he is last night. But some of these other guys, I mean, the young guys are getting thrown in there, but I do like what I see from them. I don't necessarily point at one of these guys and saying he's a huge bust, although the sample size is small.
Yeah, no, you're right. I agree with you 100%. Somebody asked me earlier today about Baker Mayfield, and how it was sort of a discouraging performance. I thought it was okay. I thought it was fine. Listen, you're going to get mistakes from rookie quarterbacks, and I've said to you before, I remember when Aikman lined up behind guard as a rookie. I remember when John Elway, I was out in San Diego covering a game, he lined up behind guard. Hey, John, over here, center's over here. Okay. And they struggled. Aikman was 0-11 his first year. Elway struggled. He had to have Steve DeBerg bail him out several times. Threw 7 touchdown passes, 14 interceptions his first year. You have games like that and seasons like that when you're young. But as you get older, remember Peyton Manning, his first year I think was 3-13. But I remember seeing him out in San Francisco, and I thought there's enough there that you go, this guy's going to be pretty good. But it's going to take a while for them to win, and it only took 1 year. They turned it around in 1 year, but he became Peyton Manning the next year. It's going to take a while for all these guys, but I like what I see in Darnold. I mean, that team's not very good. We knew that going in, and I think we kind of got teased with that first game against Detroit. You went, whoa, wait a minute, the Jets going to the top of that division? No, I mean, it's New England's division, okay? And then with Josh Allen, I mean, that was one of the greatest upsets of all time. I'm sorry, that was one of the greatest upsets of all time. They were a 17-point underdog in Minnesota against an NFC Conference Championship game competitor, and they drilled them. I mean, they smoked them. And so coming out of that, the expectations and the bar are raised so high, and then they fall flat on their face. It happens. I mean, you're going to have games like that. So I don't get too carried away. I like what I see in all these guys. I thought Josh Rosen actually played pretty well last weekend. And as I mentioned, Mayfield, he put a lot of points up on the board. Yeah, he made mistakes. He put a lot of points on the board. That defense should be better than it was in Oakland. I don't know what happened to them. That, to me, was the talk of the game afterwards, that the Cleveland defense should be a lot better than that. They've got playmakers on that side of the ball. But they didn't that day. They played poorly, and give Oakland credit. They won. But I tell you what, if I were Cleveland, I'd still be mad about that third down call. I thought that was a first down to close out the game.
Yeah, I thought so too. Let's stay on the West Coast for a second.
I'd love to stay on the West Coast.
The Los Angeles Chargers actually struggled with the 49ers. That shocked me. They opened up as 10.5-point favorites in that one. I wasn't going to sit there and say they were going to blow them out, but if I was circling a game on that Week 4 schedule, I thought, you know what? That's a pretty good potential of a double-digit win, and they didn't quite do it. What happened in that game, considering Jimmy G was not starting for the 49ers?
Yeah, I agree with you 100% because I covered both those teams. I know them pretty well, and I thought San Francisco is going to be severely handicapped without Garoppolo. And all you have to do is look at them last year. They were 1-10 without him last year, and they were 1-4 with C.J. Beathard. But Beathard played well. The Chargers' defense is vulnerable, guys. They don't have Joey Bosa. They're missing Corey Liuget. So two of your top four guys on the defensive line, and two really, one's an all-pro to me, Joey Bosa, but Liuget is a terrific player. Two terrific pass rushers. They're out. They're out, and they get Liuget back now. Bosa's going to be out for a while. That's had an impact all through this regular season and in preseason too. You look at them and you go, they should be better defensive. They got some defensive playmakers there. I mean, they really got some good play. Ingram, the rookie and safety, that they've got some playmakers, and they're not getting to the quarterback. They're not making plays. They're getting gashed. And unfortunately, I look at them now and I think the Chargers. This is a team that Patrick Mahomes started against. Remember the first game of the season? And he went up and down the field on them. The reason is because they've got significant holes there, and they cannot pressure the pocket as Denver did last night. That's been a recurring theme, and I give C.J. Beathard a lot of credit because, to me, I probably said this to you last week, I think he basically is a journeyman quarterback, a backup who's good, but he's not going to win you many games. And I thought he played his heart out. They fought very hard. He takes tough shots. He takes more hits than anybody should at that position because he's a tough guy. I mean, and that's the way he was in college. But it's San Diego's defense is vulnerable. That's what happened. They're just not. San Diego's the Chargers. I keep calling them San Diego, but their defense is vulnerable, and it will be until Bosa gets back.
Pardon, Clark. Maintenant, qu'est-ce que c'est une équipe de ice hockey Montreal Canadiens? What's going on there?
I'm not talking about Montreal in French, English, or whatever language you want to do. I tell you what, I watched the game last week against Toronto, and I thought they played pretty well, but it's going to be tough to watch only because if you're looking for wins, they're not going to be many. I worry honestly about the goalie because Price is coming off a bad season. He didn't play well in preseason. There's not much in front of him in terms of defense. A lot of young kids, and I don't know what impact it's going to have on him. And at some point, and I'm sure it's been raised already, somebody's going to raise the question of, is he the next guy to be traded? And
he better be. Clark, Dave and I actually talked about it on the show. We're just in our cars driving to the studio today. I'm saying if they fall into that category where teams hang on to a guy too long, if you're expecting something back, boy, you're on the clock right now. And I mean seriously on the clock.
Yeah, no, that's right. And that's I remember being around Bill Walsh, and he always said, I'd rather get rid of a guy too soon rather than too late. And I know what he was talking about. And he said, you don't want to hang on to that guy until he's no longer productive and of no use to anyone else. And Price at his best was terrific. And yet we didn't see him at his best last year. And honestly, I found it very tough to watch them. And I've watched them a long time. And this year, at least you're looking for the glimmer of hope. I didn't see that glimmer of hope last year. Sure hope I do this year. I mean, there's some kids that I enjoyed watching, but geez, Weber doesn't come back to Christmas time or something. It's the back line. It's going to be tough to watch because he's going to face a lot of shots, and there are going to be a lot of mistakes in front of him.
No,
it's going to be tough.
I agree. Hey, thanks so much, Clark, for joining us today. Always a lot of fun, and we'll catch up with you again real soon.
Thanks, Clark.
Yeah, I look forward to it, guys. Thank you very much. Thanks.
That is the one and only Clark Judge talking to us from the Talk of Fame Network. He's just such a affable, nice guy who's incredible. His depth of knowledge in sport, period, let alone, of course, his specialty, which is the National Football League. And, of course, he talked about his time with CBS, where he was for a very long time.
That's right.
What? Did we just become best friends? Yep.